would like to demonstrate a quick way to add a validation rule to a field. I just now watched the validation rules video or tutorial and realized, wow, that's outdated, very much so. Since now there already is actually a validation rules area in JCB, which really makes it extremely easy to add any type of validation rule which you would like to use in your fields. So just again, what does a validation rule do? Well, when you submit a form, there are fields in that form, and server side you may want to do some validation on that specific value in that field, and the validation rule really takes care of that, and it basically checks the value whether it is the correct value, and then if it isn't, you can basically return false, and if it's correct you return true, which then sets the field to continue on saving and be stored into the database. The field validation rules can also be used for other concepts, but I won't be explaining much of that now. I'll just show you how to set it up, and it's really easy. Okay, so first, of course, you need to understand where to add them. So I'm gonna just grab any type of field here. Let's take this name field. It's very much used all over. So I'm gonna open the name field, and you will see that by default there are already a set of validation rules that are created. Now there is a validation rule called exists, and there is a validation rule called unique field, and some of this is things that we've made here in this Joomla install, and others are part of the Joomla default validation rules. So how to create a custom one would be either to click here, create new validation rule, which should then give you this little heads up, and if you click OK, takes you to this a new validation rule area, and it's going to say you must add a unique value rule name, which you need to put into this area here. So you can say my validation, which is unique enough, and it'll tell you here that that rule is fine. Now most of the time you want to also leave yourself a little note, say this was why, for reasons to understand the purpose of the validation rule. But you may also you may not know what is the PHP that you need to add here. What is how does a validation rule really look? So all those default validation rules that already exist in Joomla are listed here, and this is just a selection thing. This value doesn't get stored, so it's just that you can select one and basically to use it as a base from which to start, or just to look at the different ways that it's done. So let's say we use the email one. It basically loads the Joomla's default implementation of validating an email. Now you can improve on this and call this my email validation and that kind of thing, and then use this actual validation. So let's say we're gonna do not this. Let's choose another option. Let's say exists. Okay, let's look at this. So it's going to do, you'll have to obviously read this PHP here and check that this is exactly what you want. I'm not going to explain this, that's not what the tutorial is about. You need to know your PHP coming here, and then basically write out what you want here. Obviously there are even ways to go reach out to other data sets and do validation, and yeah, this could be a very exciting place to do some tweaks. And then you would basically click save and close, which will then take you back to the name field where we were. And if we now scroll down, we will now see in this list a new validation rule That's why. That's the one we just made. And if I grab that validation with just a Control C on a PC, you can then scroll up here, see is there already a validation rule in place for this field? No. If you click on any plus of these, there should be a validate option, and you can then just paste this validation rule in there. So at the moment this this field is used like too many times, too many places, but I'm gonna just use this as an example. So it's gonna still behave the same way. It doesn't matter that it's used in so many places. Okay, so I'm gonna save and close out here, and I'm just gonna compile any of these components that actually use that field. For example, let's do component builder. That should work. I'm just going to compile this. Okay, I've downloaded the package, so let's go look inside that package to see what was done. Okay, so we go to admin and models, and then there's a rules folder. We open that, and we see it has a file in here now called my validation, and let's open that. And here in my validation, it's basically extended the form rule, and it's added that PHP that we wrote, basically this chunk over here. It has added it to the file for us. Now this my validation must also now be added to the field, right? So let's look at that. So we go out of this, then we go to forms, and I'm just going to open this custom admin view XML, just any one which I know has a name field in it, and I scroll down, and here it is, name field, and there is my validation. Now you'll see at the top of this file, it is actually pointing to the correct rule folder, so that it knows that if the rule is not default to Joomla, it should come and look here to find it. And so JCB has moved that rule into the correct place already. Now let's quickly look at just another little small pointer here, and that is the package has a config file, and if we open the config file, we see that it already has that default rule path as well set in the config file. So that means that even if we were to use that field in the configurations of our component, it will already know where to go look for that component's rule, that field rule. Okay, so that was what it did. We basically created the rule, and once we've created it, we simply added it to a field, and JCB automatically grabbed that code, created that file, added that code to the file, and everything should just work out of the box. Well, that's how the new validation rule implementation of JCB actually works. I trust this would be informative enough in helping you all using this validation rule area. Like I said before, there is a way to get to this area via the field, but as you can see, here is a direct access, just clicking on validation rules, and then there is my validation. Here are some of the other validations that we've made, custom ones, that is also in my project, so being used. So the my validation is the one we did, and anything that we put in here is basically going to be added as class methods to that file. Now you can always come back and make some tweaks to it, and everywhere where this validation rule is used, those fields will automatically be updated with the changes once it gets compiled again. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and enjoy.